Hello, everybody, and welcome to 4.5. So this one's kind of a long section because it's writing equations of lines in all three forms. So the first thing that we are going to have to do is make sure that we know all three forms of a line. So I know we've talked about this one, but we haven't really officially defined it yet in all its glory. So the first one we're going to talk about is standard form. So whenever you hear standard form, I want you to think of like standard as A, B, C, because the form is AX plus BY equals C, and that is standard form. Notice how there's no M in this form. This is the only one without a slope, and that's going to be significant a little bit later on, but this is one of those forms that you will have to have memorized. And the other thing that we should point out too is those capital A, B's, and C's. Make sure they're capital A, B's, and C's so they don't get confused with other ones. But I just want you guys to know that A, B, and C are integers. And remember, integers are any positive or negative whole number. But the other thing that you have to really make sure that you are being really careful about is A has to be positive. So that is what true standard form is. So when you have positive whole numbers for A, B, and C, I'm sorry, when you just have integers for A, B, and C, that's in standard form, but A has to be a positive number. You always have to make sure A is leading with a positive number. Okay, so let's go on to our first example. So I want you guys to put these into standard form. So I have X equals 3 plus 11Y. So you guys have to remember that for standard form, you want your X's and your Y's on your left side of your equal sign, and the C always stands for constant. You want your constant on the right side of your equal sign. So for this case, if I'm looking at my equal sign, the 3 can stay on the right side. That's where it's supposed to go, but that Y does belong on the left side. So I'm going to subtract that 11Y over, and then we want to make sure it's in this form. So X is first, then Y's, then equals the constant. So I have my 5X first minus 11Y since we subtracted it, and then it just equals positive 3. And then before I box up my final answer, I have to go back and double check. Is a positive whole number? And yes, it is. So that means this is in true standard form. So when I go to my next one, is Y equals 1/3 X minus 7. So this is in slope-intercept form, but I want it in standard form. So now my Y's are on my left side. My X's also have to be on my left side. So I'm going to subtract my 1/3 X over here. And again, I want to make sure my X's are first, then Y. So I'm going to have negative 1/3 X since I subtracted it. The Y is positive, so plus Y. And then this equals negative 7. So make sure that negative is attached to it so you don't lose your signs. Then before I go to circle this, I want to make sure that A is a positive whole number. Nope, it is not. Not only is it negative, but it's also a fraction. So I have to multiply this entire equation, the entire equation, by a number that is going to turn this negative 1/3 into a positive whole number. And hopefully you guys see that it should be negative because a negative times a negative is positive. But what whole number can I multiply 1/3 by to get to a whole number? And that should be just 3. You want that denominator to cancel out. So if I multiply by 3 or 3 over 1, that means these 3's are going to cancel out. Negative times a negative is positive. Now I just have positive 1x, and you can just write it as x. Then I have to make sure I'm not only distributing to the x's, but I have to distribute to the y and the constant as well. I want to keep this equation balanced. It's not going to be balanced if I just multiply parts of it. So negative 3 times positive 1y is negative 3y. And then negative 3 times negative 7 is positive 21. And now I can say that this is in true standard form. I have a positive whole number for my A, and then my B is negative 3, my C is 21. Okay, part C. C, I have, excuse me, negative 5x minus 11 equals 2y. So over here, there's a couple of things that are not in order. My constant has to be on the right side. My y has to be on the left side. So there's a couple things I have to move. So the first thing I'm going to move is the 11, because if I move the 2y first, then I would have a 0 over here. And some of you guys get confused when you like move everything on this side. So I'm just going to start by adding the 11 first. So now I have negative 5x equals 2y plus 11. And then I want my y's on my left side. So I'm going to subtract my 2y over here. So now I want my x's to go first. I have negative 5x minus 2y equals positive 11. And before I can circle my final answer, I have to double check. Is a positive whole number? Well, it is a whole number, but it's not positive. So I'm going to have to multiply by some number that's going to just change this to a positive. I don't need to change the numbers at all. I just need to change the sign. So I'm just going to multiply everything by negative 1. And again, make sure you are multiplying everything. Whenever you're multiplying everything by a negative 1, it's just going to change the sign. So now I have a positive 1. A positive 5x, a positive 2y, I'm sorry, I can't talk, and then a negative 11. So it's just changing all of the signs. And now that is in true form. Okay, the last one in this section, I'm going to have you guys practice this for your, actually, no, I'm going to do this one because it's a little bit more tricky. All right, so now, notice I have a couple of fractions. That's why I'm going to go through this one with you. So not only do I have to, so it's kind of like this one where we were in slope-intercept form. We have to subtract our x's over all the same. So we have to get our x's to the left side. So negative 1/5 x, subtract that over. So now we have negative 1/5 x plus 1y. So again, keep those signs. I'm subtracting 1/5 x, so it's negative. This y is sitting there positive. And then equals, this 3/4 is negative. So again, don't lose your signs. Okay, this one is a little bit trickier because not only should you realize that a is not a positive whole number, but now I want c to be a whole number as well. I want a, b, and c to be integers. So before, on this one, I said we just have to multiply by whatever the denominator is here, so it cancels it out. If I multiply by a 5 over here, that's not going to cancel out with this 4. So now I have to ask myself, what number is going to cancel out with a 5 and a 4? Essentially, I am asking myself, what number can be divisible by both 5 and 4? And hopefully you guys can see that that is 20. 20 is the smallest number that is divisible by both 5 and 4. I can do 20 divided by 5. I can do 20 divided by 4. And then not only am I multiplying by 20, but I have to get rid of this negative 2, so I'm multiplying by negative 20. So I am multiplying all three of these numbers by negative 20. So again, if you remember my little trick, fractions are nothing but division with the denominator. So I'm going to do negative 20 divided by 5, so that's negative 4, and then times that negative 1 on the top. So 4 times 1 is just 4. So now I have a positive 4x. Negative 20 times 1 is just negative 20, so I have negative 20y. And now this one's probably the hardest one. So again, remember, the denominator means division, the numerator means multiplication. So I always like to divide first just to make my numbers smaller. So negative 20 divided by 4, that is negative 5. Then I'm going to multiply it by the numerator. Negative 5 times negative 3 is positive 15. And now all of my numbers are integers and my a is positive. So that's my whole thing. Okay, so we will practice that in class. Hopefully that wasn't too bad. Come with questions. The next part is going to be the super easy part. So our next form of a line is slope-intercept form. This is the one you all know, and the one that's the easiest. You should know it is y equals mx plus b. And And again, I'm just trying to make a big deal out of all of these, even though you should know that one indefinitely. And then just in case you didn't know, even though you do, your M represents slope and your B is the y-intercept. And again, your y-intercept is always 0 in for your x and then whatever B is for your y. So now these examples are stupid easy. So if I give you a slope that is -7 and a, actually I'm not even gonna write that in, a point that is 0, 4, write this into slope-intercept form. Immediately, you should be like, I recognize that point. If there's a 0 in for x and a number in for y, that is a y-intercept. So essentially, this guy is my b. So, and slope means m. So the -7 my m's, the 4 is my b. All I have to do is plug it into the equation of the line. Y equals -7x plus 4, and we're done. Okay, for the next one, same thing. So I can just say it to you plainly. So m equals 5/8, and I'm giving you the point 0, -9. So I can say slope, I can say m, they all mean the exact same thing. You just plug them in, no math required. Y equals 5/8 x minus 9. Just don't forget the x. I think that's probably the biggest mistake that you guys make for that one. All right, let's keep on going. And again, feel free to pause if I'm moving on just a little too fast for you. Okay, let's go back to the top of the page and let's talk about our last form of a line, and that is our point slope one. We worked a little bit with that last week too. So point slope form, if you guys will remember, is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So this is where you have a point and a slope. Go figure. So again, your slope is always your m. This is your slope. And then your point comes in with the x1 and the y1. Okay, and let's just highlight these just in case you want to study them later. Okay, so we're just going to do one of these problems just to refresh your memory, and then we're going to go on to the good stuff. All right, so G, if I give you m equals -3/4, and I give you a point that is -6 and +8, let's just remember how to plug those in. So I'm going to do y minus my y1. So if you have to label these guys, it might not be a bad idea. This is x1, this is y1. So I'm going to do y minus y1, so y minus 8 equals m, just plug in -3/4, times x minus x1. So when I do x minus -6, I need both of those negatives in there. You have to remember that that is turning it positive. Okay, so just in case you forgot from the last time, your point has the opposite signs in the equation. Okay, so this 6, even though it looked negative in your point, it's going to look positive in your equation. This 8 looked positive in your point, and it's negative in your equation. They're always going to have opposite signs, and that has to do with these negatives. They just make the signs the opposite, just like when we multiplied by that -1 in the example not too long ago. Okay, let's get to the beef of this situation. Okay, so H, find an equation. So find an equation, I'm going to abbreviate as much as I can, of a line through the point 2, 5 with a slope of 3/5 in slope-intercept form. And I'm just going to abbreviate here. Okay, so again, you have to make sure that you are really paying attention to what form we want it in. So we do want to eventually get this into slope-intercept form. But you cannot just start with like, okay, it's y equals 3/5 x plus 5. That does not work. This is not a y-intercept. This is just a point. So if I have a point and a slope, which form do you think I have to start with? And I hope you guys know, because a lot of people don't, it is point slope form. If you are given a point and a slope, you have to start with point slope form. So must start with point slope form. Okay, so let's start plugging this stuff in. So we have y minus my y1, which is 5. And again, if you want to label these xy, feel free. And then equals my slope, which is 3/5, times x minus x1. So x minus 2 in this case. Okay, so I have it in point slope form. I want to get it into slope intercept form. And there's always 2 steps to get it into slope intercept form. So my first step is to just distribute. Run out of room there, so I'm just going to abbreviate that. I got to distribute this slope to these two guys. So I have y minus 5 equals 3/5 x. And then think of this 2 as 2 over 1. You can turn it into over 1 if you want, and then multiply your numerators and denominators since nothing's going to cancel. So 3 times 2 is 6, 5 times 1 is 5. Okay, and then your next step, because this is not quite in slope intercept form yet, your next step is just to add or subtract whatever number is on the left side. Whoops, oh my goodness, you can tell I'm really out of it. Add or subtract whatever number is with your y's over here. So over here, I'm going to add 5. Okay, but now we have to think about this. So I'm adding a whole number to a fraction. That means I have to get it into common denominators. So I'm adding 5 over 1. I want a common denominator of 5. So that means I'm going to just multiply these guys by 5. So what I'm really adding is 25 once I multiply these guys across over 5. And I'm adding that to this. So I'm just going to circle those just to make sure you guys can see that. All right, so these guys over here cancel out. Y equals 3/5 x, and then negative 6/5 plus 25/5. So I just add my numerators. So negative 6 plus 25 is positive 19, and then it always stays over your same denominator of 5. So my final answer for this one is going to be y equals 3/5 x plus 19/5. Okay, pause that one for a second, mull it over in your brain, make sure that's making sense. Come with any questions. If you were like, how did she get that? Where exactly did I lose you? And ask me that question when I see you in class. All right, last one, and then I'll stop this video. So write an equation of a line in slope-intercept form. That goes through 5, 3 with a slope of 2. Okay, same exact thing. I'm given a point and a slope. That means I must start with point slope form. So y minus y1. So that means y minus 3 in this case equals, I have a slope of 2 times x minus x1. My x is 5. Distribute my slope first, 2-step process. Always a 2-step process to go from point slope into slope intercept. Distribute first, so 2x minus 10. And then add your 3. Add whatever number is stuck on the left side with your y. So in slope intercept form, I have y equals 2x minus 7. Okay, I'll make your next video soon.